Hello, everybody. Thank you for returning again. This is going to be our second session on Service Cloud. And I thought that what we would do today is just finish off our Trailhead badge about getting started with Service Cloud for Lightning Experience. And then we'll move on to a couple of other very specific Service Cloud topics around entitlement management and Omni-Channel, which I think you guys will probably really enjoy. And then we'll see how we get on. And you know, if you have any questions, just feel free to yell as always. So I hope you've all had a really good time doing I haven't set any homework yet, so I will set some homework after this, but I hope you all enjoyed the sessions on Service Cloud today. I am going to present my window. Here we go. So I hope you've all got Trailhead up and running again. As always, we always work off Trailhead. So the badge that we're doing is called, it's called Service Cloud for Lightning Experience. And we are going to just finish off this final piece around automating case management, which is where I unfortunately had to dash very quickly the other day because I realized I'd run over and I was a little bit late for a meeting, so apologies. So we talked about, on Wednesday, we talked about what cases are. We talked about cases being open and closed. We very briefly looked at page layouts for open and closed cases. We talked about queues. We also built an assignment rule. We built an escalation rule, and we looked at auto response rules as well. And we went through the, in fact, did we? I think we just got as far as escalation rules, actually. So can anyone remember, and I'm just going to do this as a quiz, can anybody remember what an assignment rule does? Yes, it does, yes. Is there anything else that assignment rules work with? So the chat says it determines who gets assigned a request. Yes, that's correct. But what can be assigned? We talked about cases the other day, but is there any other thing that you can assign using an assignment rule? Okay, well, the answer is leads, actually. Yes, that's right, Jeremy, it is leads. So leads and cases are both really representing some workload that needs to be taken care of. So for leads, this is business development, where someone will phone up and just talk to that lead in the attempt to create an opportunity for to sell something. Whereas cases are service requests. They are questions, they're problems, they're tickets, they're instances of where a customer needs your help from your company. So assignment rules do determine where cases are routed for the appropriate skill sets and attention levels. So, for example, you could create a assignment rule that routes complaints to a specialist complaints team. Can anyone remember what the difference is between a user and a queue? Yep, users are individuals. Queues can be groups of users. Yes, so a queue acts like a pot, which contains users. The users belong to that queue, to that pot, and in that pot as well, we can have cases and leads owned by that queue in general, so that when people pick up actionable items like leads and cases, they can actually assign ownership. They can actually take ownership of those items from the queue into their own personal name, which is why they're very useful for assignment rules. They tend to go hand in hand. What about escalation rules? Can anyone remember what the point of an escalation rule is? I'll give you a second just to think. Yes, Natasha, that's right. So you use escalations to pass a case up the food chain, if you like. So, and the primary purpose of doing that is when cases are escalated to the right people, if they're not solved within a certain amount of time. So yes, they tend to be built around SLAs. Now, the thing about SLAs is that there is a whole separate feature in Salesforce that functions to support SLAs. Escalation rules existed before this other feature did. So we still do use escalation rules. It's just there is another feature that kind of supersedes them, if you like. So good, thank you, everybody. So let's have a look at auto response rules. And again, auto response rules can be set up for leads as well as cases. In fact, we have one set up for my org, whereby if you fill out a contact us form, which is a simple web to lead form, the person who's completed the form gets an email back just to say thank you and your request has been acknowledged. So that's what an auto response rule does. So when we create auto response rules, and I think this is where we actually have a hands-on challenge to do, we have to create an sorry, not for the challenge, but auto response rules are primarily around making sure that service teams, that customers receive a confirmation when their case is received. So it's like an acknowledgement, and it helps customers gives customers the confidence that their case, they haven't just sent a question out into a black hole it's never going to come out again. It's basically an acknowledgement. So to do that, what we have to do is go into Salesforce and go to our setup or service setup, whichever you prefer. And we're going to go to auto response rules. And you'll see on the left there are two sections, one for leads, one for cases. So we're going to look at cases. And in our case, we have one single rule here, which is called Welcome to Support. And as you can see, there's nothing there yet. It's just created there when you spin up the org. Or when you set it up. When I set up an assignment rule, it was set up then. So what we can do here is actually create rule entries and say that, if a case is created and the origin equals email, for example, so go to new, case origin equals email. It's called case origin. And the same for leads. You could say if, the lead source equals web, then you can have it sent. Now, typically your acknowledgement emails will tend to come from a no reply address, because you don't really want people responding to it necessarily. It's just an automation. So there's a feature in Salesforce called organization-wide email addresses. And in organization-wide email addresses, you basically have to assign, you need to add that email address as like a, Ursa Major Solar support, and the email address might be no-reply at Ursa Major, etc. And then you assign certain profiles to that organization-wide email address. And what that allows you to do is to automate the emails that go out and have them appear as if they're from that address. So that's the purpose of this section here. Something else you have to do, you have to create an email template. So we have an auto response rule. So case created, web inquiries is a template email that we get given in our Trailhead playgrounds that we can play with for this purpose. And it enables us to send an email from a template in order to acknowledge a case that's come through the door. So more case management tools, things that you would tend to use in Service Cloud to manage your cases. Easier, faster service. They want to make the most of their investments, so they wonder what other case management tools can use in the future. So obviously your page layout editor, so you can customize the structure of your page, you can add different fields, just the same as you would with any other object in Salesforce. You can go and change the status, you can change the types and categories, and the taxonomies of cases tend to be the biggest topics of discussion. when you're designing how cases should work. Second is email templates, so being able to standardize any communications that you send from cases and increase your agent's productivity. You can actually merge information from your case onto an email template, for example, and they're automatically available to anyone. The next thing we're going to look at is entitlement management, and this is where you are able, this is where it's directly related to service level agreements, where you provide the correct level of support for a customer depending on what they've purchased in terms of agreements, if indeed that is your business model. So you can define, enforce and track service agreements, you can create service contracts, and sell them separately if you, let's say, if you're in a position to, but also it actually calculates the amount of time it's taking to get to your case milestones, so that you can make adjustments to your support process accordingly. Omni-Channel, we've already taken a look at. That is a way of taking on work items. So it could be cases, live agent, it could be chats, it could be text messages, it could be social posts. All of those things are generally funneled through Omni-Channel to give agents and supervisors the ability to keep on top of their workload. Macros, this is for completing repetitive tasks on cases, like changing the status or closing the case. We talked about quick text very briefly. Quick text is a way of creating predefined messages. So, like, for example, if you're chatting on Live Agent, you might have some quick text that says, "Hello, my name is Nigel, and I'm happy to help you today. What can I do for you?" So that you don't have to type that every time. You can just click quick text and off it goes. And utilities, so things like adding notes, looking at history, using a soft phone in the footer of your service console. These are all parts. This is all part and parcel of how you really manage your workload when you're helping customers out. So we've got one more thing to do before we can claim this badge. So what we have to do is to create a case with assignment and escalation rules. So I'm going to move this over to my other window so that I can show you what we are doing as we go. And I'm going to stay backstage, but I'm going to just refresh my page there. So we've launched an exciting new product called Panel 1, and we've trained a set of our agents to support it. We're going to create a queue for Panel 1 and an assignment rule to route cases that contain Panel 1 to that queue. We're then going to create an escalation rule to reassign any high priority Panel 1 cases to you when they're not closed after 30 minutes. So the first thing we've got to do, and if please follow along, is we go to queues. So we're going to go to users and then queues, and we're going to create a brand new queue. And it's going to be called Panel 1. And the object that we're going to make it available for is the case.
Charges work?
Okay, darling, have a look down the side of my bed.
I've been using those ones. They don't charge my iPad one bit. Nor yours.
Okay, we'll have to read a book then, darling. Sorry. Okay, so now that we've added the object to the queue, we've just basically said that the case object is available for routing to a queue. We can then add our users to it. So the users that we're going to add, we can either add it user by user, or we can do it by role, or we can do it by public group. So I'm just going to add, it doesn't say who should be added to that. So I'm just going to make sure that you are, as a bare minimum, assigned to that queue. And click Save. And now we have our Panel 1 queue. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and create an assignment rule on the case. So I'm just going to type in assign, and I'm going to click Case Assignment Rules. And I'm going to create a new rule, which is called Assign Panel 1. Why is it doing that? Assign Panel 1. Make sure it's active. Don't forget to tick that it's active. And we are going to, the requirement says the assignment rule should route cases to the Panel 1 queue where the description contains Panel 1. So we're going to create one new rule entry. sort order is number 1 because it's the first one. And then the field we need is the description. So we're just going to go and get description. And we're going to use the operator contains. And then the value is going to be panel 1. The next step, step 3, is to select the user or queue that we will assign the case to when it meets the criteria of this rule, which is description contains panel 1. So we're going to go to a queue, and we're going to go and find our panel 1 queue, which is there. And I think email template is where you can define a template to use in order to email the queue members that to notify them that a case has come into their queue. And if you've got agents who are actively working in Salesforce and not anywhere else, and they're working off list views, they tend not to need that so much. It just becomes noise because they're using their list views. If they're doing it properly, they're using their list views to manage their workload. So I'm going to leave that blank, and I'm just going to hit save and make sure it's active. So yeah, that's fine. So the next thing we have to do is to add an escalation rule. So back in my quick find, I'm going to click Esca, I'll type Escala, and go to Escalation Rules. And I'm going to create a new one called Panel 1. And I'm going to make sure it's active. Please make sure it's active. Right. The next thing I'm going to do is add my rule entry, and the requirement says the escalation rule should escalate cases not closed after 30 minutes based on when the case is created and should use business hours specified on the case. Okay, so we click new. Sort order is 1, and it's cases not closed after 30 minutes. So we want closed equals false. And I really hope that this gets through the checking mechanism, because this is how I would do it. And so case is not closed after 30 minutes based on when the case is created. So that's step 4. And business hours specified on the case, which is step 3. And save. And then under escalation actions, I want to say that if the age is over 30 minutes, so it's 0 hours and 30 minutes. So, and if it's open, so if it's still open and it's after 30 minutes since it was created, we then want to auto assign the case to you. So you just put your own name in. If you want to, you can put a notification template in. This is where there's an escalated case notification. And then there's an email that can be sent to the users to say that it's been escalated. So that basically tells the agent your case has now been assigned, reassigned to new case owner. Yeah. So the first bit is auto reassign cases, and the template is, actually I've done it the wrong way round. So your case reassignment is designed to go to the new owner, and then the other escalated case email goes to the owner to say it has been notified. And then you can click notify case owner if you want to. You can notify specific users. So if you wanted to put the CEO in there, there are other additional emails, like if there's other parts of your company. I can't believe I've just done that. If there's other parts of your company who might need visibility into that, then you can do that. Right, I'm going to have to do that again because I clicked the wrong button. Then save. So it's going to escalate at 30 minutes, and it's going to assign to Gemma. If I want to, I can get it to notify me. but I'll just do, so auto reassign cases, case assignment notification. Save it. Okay, so the escalation action should assign the case to you. Both the escalation rule and assignment rule must be active. Okay, are we ready? Let's go and have a quick test. So if I go and create a new case and I put panel 1 in the description, we should see that case being reassigned to queue. And then if I check back in half an hour, we should see it's been escalated. So let's just have a little test. Save. Oh, I didn't assign it with the active assignment rule. Damn it. Assign using active assignment rule. Save. So you can see case owner is panel 1 because the assignment rule is kicked in. So if I come back in 30 minutes and it's still open, that should then say, the case owner should say Gemma Blizzard, and there's a tick box that says escalated. That will be ticked as well. So should we have a go at checking our challenge? Let's give it a whirl. Check challenge. Okay, who got confetti? Okay, Jeremy has a question. So can you trick the time on the assignment rule, or does it only work based on the time created? Well, it can work on any date or date time field, basically. So if you have another date time field on your case, you can actually escalate based on that field. It just happens that the requirements here were to look at it from when it was created as opposed to any other. Because if you remember, or if you edit here, it actually says, you know, do you want to do it based on, oh, actually, sorry, yeah, apologies. No, it's created or first modified. I was talking rubbish. You can't use any date or time field. However, there is nothing stopping you from actually having the system, having Process Builder tick the escalated box for you based on another field and have that work instead of the escalation rule. So you could use Process Builder to do that. Does that answer your question? Cool. Okay. Lovely. I'm going to move my chat over to this screen because I keep missing things and my other screen's not working today. Okay, so hopefully you've all got some confetti now, and we can take a little look at the next badge. Is everyone cool with that? Did you all get it? Cool. Okay. So the next module I want to do with you is called Entitlement Management for Lightning Experience, and I'm going to put a link to that in the chat for you. So we all feel a bit more confident about cases, and we all understand what a case is for and the sorts of things you can do with cases in Salesforce and why you would use them. Okay. Let's have a look at entitlement management, and this one is one I haven't done before, so we can all do this together, which is going to be cool. So let me talk first of all about what entitlements are. There are many companies out there that sell personalized service tiers, tiers of customer service. So when they actually sell a service or a product, they'll quite often sell a support contract that goes with it, and they the more they pay, the better levels of support they get. Now, entitlements are designed to support those processes. So as Ursa Major Solar grows its solar panel empire, they want to keep their reputation for really, really good personalized service. They've heard some complaints lately that customers aren't getting what they expect from their service level agreements. And then for those of you who aren't aware of what an SLA is a contract that is signed by a customer, and it effectively just gives them it really gives them a very clear indication of what they get for the level of service that they're paying for. We often talk about SLAs in the context of response times for customer service. So, for example, if you've asked a question on Twitter, you quite often see a very short response time of maybe 10-15 minutes, which is the target response time for them to acknowledge that you've tweeted them and to at least respond back. For things like if you send an email or fill out a form, for a support team, then there'll be, there could be a response time of, 2 days for a basic level, and maybe 2 hours for a premier level of support. Those are the different support levels that people subscribe to. So Roberto Alvarez, who's the COO and co-founder of Ursa Major, has heard some complaints that customers are not getting what they expect from their SLAs. And he decides that they need something better in order to keep track of those SLAs, and he wants to use entitlement management in Salesforce. So entitlements are basically units of customer support. So if you give phone support or web support, those entitlements are given in the contract. So it might say, if you need Premier support, these are the channels that you can use, that you're entitled to use. In other things, some people are entitled to a set number of problems per year. They might be entitled to a response time of 2 hours. They might be entitled to daily phone calls with the support teams. It just depends on what's been sold and what the customer's needs are. Sorry, the other way around, what the customer's needs are and therefore what's been sold to them. So here are the benefits. It saves a bit of time for your agents, so you don't have to go and look at what they're entitled to, because you don't want to have to go through scrolling through pages and pages of legalese to try and find out what the customer's support entitlements are. So the idea of entitlements is to actually reflect that straight away on the account, so that the agents can actually see what they're allowed to have. It can automate routine tasks, so they can, if they use, there's a possibility, and I don't think it's just with Apex triggers, but agents can skip some of their tasks and spend more time doing stuff that makes a bigger impact and supports their customers better. We also use entitlements to define what is supposed to happen in the support process. When I was at Financial Force, we had basic and premier support. That process was around saying, okay, if you've got a business critical case, then you can expect a response within 2 hours. If it's not business critical but you have bought premier support, you'll still get an answer within 2 hours, etc. And it's very easy to look at a customer and see what kind of support they've got, so that you can prioritize accordingly. And in Salesforce, we can automate that by controlling what goes in the list views that your agents are working through. It also helps to offer better and more consistent customer service, because if you've got frameworks for your support agents to work to, they're more likely to become more familiar with it, and therefore understand the process better and are able to set expectations appropriately with customers. So Roberto calls in admin Maria to start setting up entitlements, and to keep things simple, she decides to link entitlements to accounts. So here's what her approach looks like, and that basically I'm trying to figure out that. So step one, she creates an entitlement, and it entitles a particular account to phone support. So this is your account and this is the phone support, step one. Step two, the contact from that account calls the support line with a question, help me. The support agent looks up the account and looks to see if it has an active phone support entitlement. So are you allowed to phone me with your problems? The agent answers the question, and if needed, creates a case from the entitlement. And now that she's established the basics, she can get in the details. When the customers need support, it's usually urgent, They can't wait days for a response if their solar panels are broken. Well, we've all done it. I've got solar panels as well, and I've had to wait before. But anyway, to address this issue, so she creates an entitlement process. It's basically a timeline, and it puts all of the steps for the process that have to be completed in order to resolve the case. So that's why it defines the process. And we call those steps milestones, entitlement milestones. The more milestones you have, the more complex the process, in which case we then start talking to the customer about why it's such a complicated process. Is there a way that we can cut that down, make it simpler, and provide better service to customers? So we're going to follow along with this so I can show you. So we're going to go and enable entitlement management first. So in order to do that, we go into our Salesforce playground, Trailhead playground, and we go to Setup. And we're going to go to, in the quick find, we're going to type entitlement. And we go to Entitlement Settings. And this is where we get to switch it on. We go to Enable Entitlement Management. And if you want to know more information about all this, you get the setup checklist and the admin's guide there. So once that's enabled, I'm just going to move that. Once that is enabled, we can then go and set field level security, because in the background, backstage, once we've enabled entitlements, we can't actually see, there's a field that we need to look up to on the case, which is called entitlement. And we need to make sure that we are able to see that. So, and also I want to we'll probably come back to this in a moment, but there are other settings that we can do here as well. We can limit our options that are returned for certain lookup fields. So we can say that, you know, if we're working with assets, so an asset might represent a laptop that's being supported and that's been issued to a contact, and then the agent might be supporting that asset. You know, we can actually limit the asset lookup field to only return options for assets that are related to the same account or contact that is on the case. So it just helps to really tighten up those rules around which assets and which entitlements you can select. I suspect that this was designed for a specific customer because it's such a specific requirement, but it is a scalable requirement, which is good. So we got to go and set field level security on the case. So we've got to go to Object Manager, and we've got to go and find the case object. And then we've got to find a field called Entitlement Name. And if we scroll down, now that we've actually, you'll notice that now that we've enabled entitlements, there's all these extra fields have appeared. So we have to click Entitlement Name, set field level security, and make sure it's visible, because it's off by default. Now, we can't use entitlement management unless we've got something in the entitlement on the case. Otherwise, it won't produce case milestones, and therefore we can't see whether or not we've delivered to our SLA. So that's a really important step. Another way that you can actually figure out who has access to these fields is to just click View Field Accessibility. And then we can find the field, which is called Entitlement Name, and it will tell you who has access to this. And you can see it's all hidden because of the page layout. So if we click Hidden, this is where we can make sure it's visible. And we can put, it's just yet another way to put the entitlement name field on the page layout, and we can choose which section it belongs to. Now, back in the day, we used to have to use Apex code to set that field, and now we can do it with Process Builder, which is marvelous. Okie doke. So that's all done. Let's go and check our page layouts. So we have our case layout here. I just want to check that we've got the entitlement name on the page layout. Yes, we do. So you've learned another way to add things to the page layout. the next thing we've got to do is we've got to go to the product object and we've got to add entitlement templates. Now, entitlement templates are a way of aligning a support process with a particular product. We could say that, you know, if we're selling Premier support, this is the entitlement that goes with it. And therefore, this is the volume of cases, this is the SLA response time, this is the SLA resolution time, this is the escalation time, and that we're going to apply to all service plans that we sell of this type, of Premier type. So we got to go to the product and change the product page layout because there's a related list we need to add to it. So back in our object manager, I'm going to type in prod, find our product object, go to page layouts, click on the product layout and click on related lists. And this is where we take entitlement templates and we just drag and drop it. I tend to put them in, like, in terms of priority order, I tend to prioritize your prices before anything else. But then what I want to do here is just double check, am I happy with the fields that appear for that related list? Mostly because I'm just fussy, but looking at the name of an entitlement template doesn't really give me much information about what it's being used for. So I can put in things like, this is the process it belongs to. This is the number of cases per entitlement. This is the business hours. This is the per incident flag. This is the term in days, and this is the type. I just like to put that in there. That's completely up to you. You don't have to put that in there if you don't want to, but personally I do. So I'm going to save that and click yes to overwrite users related list customizations. And that means basically whichever user looks at a product, they're going to see that related list. The next thing we have to do is add the entitlements related list to the account and asset page layouts for this specific task that we're going to be doing. So if I go to Object Manager and click Account, go to our page layouts and pick our account layout, and we're going to find a related list called Entitlements. So we just click Related Lists, pull down Entitlements, and quick save. And then if you want to, you can go and add it to all your other layouts as well, quite easily. That's why I quick save, and then I can go and kind of flick through and just add more if I want to. I think I'll just add one anyway. I hope it won't break anything. And then when you're looking at an account, it means that you can see what level of support they're entitled to. So, and that's really valuable information for someone like an account manager who may go and see a customer about a renewal, and the customer goes, well, I'm really hacked off because I logged a case and I've not heard anything yet. Well, when did you log the case? Oh, about an hour ago. Yeah, you're not entitled to have a response yet. You just got to wait. But we can sell you a Premier support plan if that's important to you, you know. So you see how all of this information comes together and can help shape conversations with customers. The next object we need to adjust is our assets. So we click Asset and Page Layout. We don't really use assets very often, but they represent a junction, a join between a product and an account and contact. So if you sell laptops, for example, let's say you have an opportunity where you sell 25 laptops, you could possibly expect 25, and then you provide a support contract for all those laptops. You could probably expect 25 assets to come from that. And each asset will have a contact that it is currently assigned to. So whoever is using that laptop would have an asset tag on it, and you would have a record of that contact, of that asset being currently in the possession of the contact that's listed there. And this is a great way to kind of show how entitlements work, is this kind of use case. So there's another related list, and that's called entitlements as well, and we need to add that to the asset. So we're going to save that. Now that that's all set up, apparently it is time for Maria to create her first entitlement. So as we noted, an entitlement tells support agents what kind of support the customer is entitled to have. So Dream House Realty, which is a key customer of Ursa Major Solar, they have an SLA that entitles them to support for 1 year. So Maria has to create an entitlement that reflects the terms of the company's SLA. So this time we've got to go front stage, because entitlements is actually an object, just like anything else. So we're going to go into our 9 dots in the corner, and I'm going to type in entitlements. And up comes the item here. So we just click entitlements. And we're going to create our first entitlement record. So this one is going to be called, so we click new. This one is going to be called standard phone support. And then you have a type, so phone or web support. And this is very specific to a single account. So the account name is Dream House Realty. We might have to create a new account, but let's just check. Yes, we do. So click new. So Dream House Realty, and then leave everything else blank. Get your validation rules. Okay. The start date is today's date. And the end date is a year from today. So I'm just changing that to 2021. We leave all the rest of the fields blank, and then we click save. But I just want to show as well that you can create an entitlement for an individual asset, and you can specify how many cases are allowed per entitlement and so on. If you've got an agreement, a managed service agreement, for example, where they say you can log, 25 cases per month, you could have 12 entitlements, each with 25 in there. Okay, so now we've created our entitlement. This is for this specific account, and it tells agents what support level its contacts are entitled to. Now what we can do is also, so we've done that manually. There's also a way to create entitlements automatically, aside from using Process Builder and Flow. All of Ursa Major's products have a standardized SLA. So solar panels always include 1 year of phone support, no matter who is buying them. We can create a separate phone support entitlement for every single customer, but that takes a bit of time, right? So you could automate that using Process Builder, you could automate that using Flow, but you can also automate it using entitlement templates that come from a product. Only use those if you use products, okay? So if you don't use products in Salesforce, you will need to use Process Builder or Flow in order to produce your automatically produce entitlements. So solar panels, obviously the most popular product. So what we have to do is go and create an entitlement template. And to do that, we go backstage again, and we type in entitlement. And we're going to create an entitlement template. So we click here, and we're going to create a new template. This is going to have a term length. What? No. Oh, why? Okay, right. Shall I just try going into Classic and see if this works? It's the curse. Okay, that was going so well. Entitlement templates. New template. Boom. Turns out it was just kicking off because it was in Lightning. And it hadn't been addressed yet, I think. So the template is going to be called phone support. Term is 1 year, so it's 365 days. We leave the entitlement process blank for now. We're going to come back and do it later. And we click save. Now, I just want to talk about business hours. Business hours, you always get a default. So for every single Salesforce org that gets set up, there is a default set of business hours. And in these business hours, you can define, what hours are we open to support customers under each time zone. So it turns out that we never sleep. We have 24-hour support. But what we can also do here is add in things like Christmas and public holidays. So we can create a new holiday. So we call this Xmas 2020, which is on the 25th of December. It's a recurring holiday that happens once a year on every December 25th, all day, and we save that. And it means that, you know, your clock doesn't tick on Christmas Day when you open up a case, for example. Okay, makes sense? So I'm going to remove that because I don't want to break Trailhead. So save, just in case. And you can create multiple business hours as well. So you could say that for you could, if you have different people in different time zones, you can create, and they're open at different office hours. For example, you know, in the US, there's no concept of work-life balance. No, I'm just kidding. In the US, let's say you want to open up the support contact center at 7 a.m. and close it at 7 p.m. versus in the UK, you might want to open up at 9 a.m. and finish at 5 p.m. etc. So it just allows you to have different business hours per region, which is, and per time zone, which is, or even per team. You know, if you've got different teams that work different business hours, it enables you to be fairer to the teams that don't work all the time. So what are we doing next? So we've done that. We created an entitlement template. The next thing we're going to do is go and enter products. We're going back to front stage here, and we're going to go and find our products. We click products, and we're going to create a product called solar panel. So we click new, solar panel. For the product code, enter 9876. Make it active. That means it can be added to a support process and also can have prices added to it. Leave the rest of the fields blank and click save. Okay. Then what we have to do is apply the entitlement template to the product. It tells us to switch to Salesforce Classic for this bit. So we go to Salesforce Classic, and in our recent items on the left, we can see the product that we've created, which is called Solar Panel. I'm just going to pause and check for any questions. No? Okay, we're good. And you can see here that there's out of your related list, you've got your standard price and you've got your entitlement template here. So we click into Add Entitlement Template, and there's our phone support. So we insert selected and we hit done. And what we've now done is we've said for any occasions where we've sold this project, we can produce this. We can produce an entitlement for phone support. Okie doke. Now, what's the next thing that we're going to do? We've applied it to the template, which is good. And then what we're going to do is, whenever someone buys solar panels from Ursa Major, an asset record is created from the solar panel product record. And basically they are, so for example, it could be the solar panels that have been purchased by Dreamhouse Realty. That's what an asset is, okay? It's Dreamhouse Realty's personal solar panels, not solar panels that are sold by Ursa Major. Because the product now has an entitlement template, there's going to be, on the new asset that's created, there's going to be a brand new entitlement created that is just for that asset. So we've got to go and create a new asset for this part. Now I'm going to switch back to Lightning and see if this works. And I'm going to click back into my front stage area. I am going to click, I'm going to type assets. Okay, and up comes the assets object. It's just another object like anything else. So we click new, and the asset name is Dreamhouse Realty solar panel, which means it's their solar panel. The product is the solar panel 9876. The account is Dreamhouse Realty, and the install date is today's date. And the status is installed. Save. Now let's have a look at what we can see. So let's say, yes, what I want to check first. So if you look there, because we've used a template on the product itself and the product is linked to the asset, we can now see that there is a phone support entitlement for Dreamhouse Realty. And it's used the settings that we've used on our template. As you can see, it's used the default business hours, the dates match up, and this is very specific to this account. Let's say that Dreamhouse Realty gets a faulty solar panel and the company calls Ursa Major's support line in a panic, and the agent can basically look up Dreamhouse Realty in Salesforce. Let's try that. Delete some of these tabs because they're just noise. I don't like having too many tabs open, but I've got friends, sometimes you look at their computer and you're like, holy potatoes, how did that happen? And you can see here, there are two entitlements. One is from the template, the other is the one we made earlier manually. But it also means that we're able to, we're able to order a replacement solar panel directly over the phone for them. Okay. Clear? Because we're now going to do it again, but we're going to do it with a different entitlement in order to get the badge. Natasha, you're okay now? You've got products? Okay. Jeremy said, wait, how to switch? How to switch, is that from Classic to Lightning? Okay, thank you. All right, any questions before we go ahead and do this again? I know, I'm sorry, I'll slow down a little bit if you want me to. Okay, yeah, I'll slow down a bit. So we are going to do this bit again, and this time we're going to do it with a different entitlement template. So what we have to do, to link entitlement templates to products, we have to switch to Classic. Well, now they tell us, that's good. So Dreamhouse Realty recently purchased a new solar battery. We have to create a new product for their battery, first of all. So we're going to go to products. And we're going to create a new product called solar battery. So we click new. Make sure it's active. The code is 6789. Why that's important, I don't know, but it helps. And then when we're ready, we can go ahead and save it. Then we need to switch to Classic because we're going to add our entitlement template for phone support to the solar battery. So we're going to go to Classic. So I'll just click my face in the corner, switch to Salesforce Classic. And I'm going to go and find in the recent items on the left, the solar battery. And now that I've got this on my related lists, I'm going to click Add Entitlement Template. And I can see that there is one entitlement template for phone support. So I just click the box next to that. I click Insert Selected, and I click Done. And all I've done there now is just related the entitlement template to this product as well. So if I look at this template, if I could see related lists on here, I would be able to see that it relates to two products. Does that pace a bit better? Cool. So then what we have to do is apply the template to the product, which we have done, and then I think we can click Check Challenge to earn 500 points. So let's give this a go. Oh, my 500 points. Come on, come on, come on. Woohoo! We're 25% of the way through. Okay. Any questions about that before we move on? Does everyone understand what entitlements are for? Okay, thank you. So the next thing we've got to do is we're going to start working on milestones, and milestones are a key part of any entitlement process. We're going to be building an entitlement process, and we're going to be setting up our milestones for the entitlements that we have. So do you remember Ada Balewa, who's our product support specialist? Well, the COO has decided to have a meeting with them to find out what the support strategy is going to be. And during their meeting, they outline the new happy customer policy. All high priority cases must be closed within 16 business hours, and all medium and low priority cases must be closed within 32 business hours. They let Maria in on the plan because she has to set up an entitlement process, which is basically a customizable timeline of support steps in order to enforce that new policy. So there's something that we've got to do here. So I'm going to switch back to Lightning, and we're going backstage again. So just close all my previous windows down so that I declutter my head. I set up. And we've got to find something called Milestones, which is under Entitlement Management. And if you're not using Quick Find, you can generally find this under Feature Settings, Service. I'm totally guessing, by the way. Haha, Entitlement Management and Milestones. Now, we've got the requirement here, which is all high priority cases must be closed within 16 business hours, and all medium and low priority cases must be closed within 32 business hours. That's 2 milestones, one at 16 hours and one at 32 hours. So we've got to create a couple of new ones. So we click New Milestone, first of all. Now, this one is going to be called Resolution Time. And we need to enter a description so that the support team knows what the milestone is tracking, because this is actually visible to the support team. So if we just put the time given to resolve a customer's issue. The countdown basically starts when the case is created and ends when the case status is set to closed. So for the recurrence type, this is a setting that allows you to say how many times should this milestone occur per case, right? So if this is just, if obviously a case can only really be resolved once, so hence the recurrence type is just going to be no recurrence. But what you can do is you can recur some of these milestones if you've got a circle back. If you want to apply an SLA to, let's say you have a very stringent process where you require something from the customer, and you have an SLA for asking the customer for that information. And if you hit that SLA, that's great. But then if after the customer has sent you something, you've maybe got 24 hours to go through it, and that's your next deadline. So you see what I mean about having it enforce a process and train and make your agents more effective? Well, this is part of that. This is how you guide your agents and help to train them on how your business is operating on its support process. Okay. Independent milestones occur whenever a milestone criteria are met. So and sequential milestones occur on repeat when milestone criteria are met. So we click Save. And now anytime Maria wants to see a list of master milestones, she can enter milestones. And she can get to it and see what all of her different milestones are. So it could be that you have a response milestone, and then it could be a resolution time milestone as well, in order to do that. So now that she has created the milestone, our lovely Maria has to add it to an entitlement process. And this is basically where she puts down the more specific information, like a resolution time for high priority cases, and, you know, and perhaps a longer one for a lower priority case. So we've got to create an entitlement process. So if I just type in entitlement in the quick find, I can get to entitlement processes. Now notice we have done this in kind of a backwards fashion. Entitlement processes actually drive everything, but you've got to add things to that process first, which is why we've done the template first, which is why we've done the milestones first, and now why we're finally doing the entitlement processes. So in order to set up an entitlement process, there's a few things you got to do. You've got to create your milestone, you then got to create your process, then you've got to add the milestone to the process, and then you've got to add workflow actions to the milestone, because a milestone could be used across multiple different processes and represent the same thing. So this process is basically going to be called, is going to be on the case object. And the name of it is going to be standard support. Bearing in mind, you could have two. You could have one for standard support, one for premier support. This is the default support process for customers. Okay. Don't select active, because we're gonna switch it on after we've added all the actions that we need to do for it. And if you want to, you can select some business hours. So I just select default. Now we could have standard support US, standard support UK based on the business hours as well. The case enters the process based on the case created date, but you can base it on a custom date time field as well. One of the most shocking things I once saw was when I logged into an org and saw somebody had created a date time field on the case saying date and time opened, and it was actually already there. It's a standard field on the case object. I was like, why have you done that? Well, we don't know. Okay, fine. Case exit the process. So you could say that a case exits the entitlement process once it's been responded to, or once a customer has completed a satisfaction survey, or when the customer says it's okay for you to close the case, for example. You can see just how much time can be spent planning how to use this and how to use cases in general. I mean, we're just going through a very, very, very basic use case and learning how to set it up in Salesforce. But in reality, setting it up in Salesforce is a much bigger job because of all the talking you have to do about it and all the decisions that have to be made around how it should be set up. Now, we are going to exit the process when the case is closed. Okay, and we're going to click save. And look, you get this timeline. So you can see what's meant to be happening. And at the moment, it's nothing because we haven't got any milestones on our process. But we're saying that when a case is opened, the clock starts based on the default 24-hour clock. And it will just keep going until we add milestones. So what we then need to do is under milestones, we're going to click new. And look, there's our resolution time milestone. And this is where we start to add all the details here. Okay, so we can say our first milestone is going to be the resolution time. And our time trigger in minutes, this is when you want that first milestone to be hit, basically. And what we tend to say, and because it's all done in minutes, you've got to basically, if it's like, let's say it's 16 hours, you've got to do 16 hours times 60 minutes in order to get the number of minutes. And bearing in mind, this is dependent on the business hours that you've got set up, okay? So at the moment, our default business hours is 24 hours. So it's literally going to trigger, 960 minutes after the case opened. Business minutes. If we had an 8-hour day business hours and it was 960 minutes, then you could even, your milestone might not even be hit for 2 days, depending on when it was opened. So for our milestone name, we're choosing our resolution time. our time trigger is the number of minutes that agents have to complete the milestone. So how long do they have to resolve the case? So the policy says all high priority cases must be closed within 16 business hours. And all the medium and low priorities must be closed within 32 business hours. So let's look at 16. What's 16 hours in minutes? So 16 times 60 is 960. So this time trigger is going to kick off at 960 minutes. We're going to use the default business hours. And this is number 1, meaning that this milestone runs first. And if the criteria for this milestone are met, then it will hold the agent liable to hit the milestone. Now, because we are looking at high priority cases needing to be closed within 16 business hours, we're actually going to be looking at the priority field on the case. That's our criteria for this milestone. So we hit priority equals high. Okay, makes sense? This milestone is going to be, that gives agents 960 minutes to solve high priority cases. Once we've done that, we just save it. And then we've got to do one for medium and low priority cases after that. So Jeremy has a quick question. When I switch back to Lightning, I cannot see the entitlement on the product. Is that normal? I guess so, yes, because it keeps telling us that we have to go into Classic to add that. Okay. Okay, all figured out. Good, good, good. Right, so the next thing we've got to do is create a second milestone for this process, which is also going to be called the resolution time, but it's going to apply for low and medium-low priority cases. So we're going to go to New. We're going to pick the same resolution time milestone, and our time trigger, because it's got to be 32 hours, we're going to do 32 times 60 is 1920. So we're going to go 1920. Our business hours are default. Our order is number 2. And our case priority is equal to medium and low. So we just tick medium, low, insert, and save. And now we've added 2 milestones to our entitlement process. So you can see here on the timeline, you have one here. And if you hover over it, it will tell you that its high priority cases have to be met. The milestone has to be met at 16 hours. And at 32 hours, you've got your resolution time for medium and low priority cases. So this just defines your process. Okay. So we've set up the definition. We've added the required steps, and now we have to actually add a workflow item to this in order to warn agents when an open high priority case is approaching that time limit, is approaching the 16-hour mark. And there are many things you can do for this. You could create a task, you could send an email, you could update another field, you could actually send it out by message, but you could also escalate it as well. So what we're going to do here is we're still in our entitlement process and we're still on standard support. We're going to click on the name of our milestone for high priority cases. So this is number 1, resolution time. And just look here, you've got 3 different triggers that you can add based on this milestone. So you can have a time trigger so that agents are notified 2 hours before their milestone expires. And you can have warning actions, you can have success actions that says, congratulations, you've passed your, you've resolved it on time, have some points, and points mean prizes. But you can also add violation actions as well. So you could actually escalate it to a manager and go, they were naughty and didn't finish their case, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to add a time trigger for our warning actions in order to notify agents 2 hours before the resolution time milestone expires. So in these related lists, you've got your success actions, your warning actions, your violation actions. We're going to add a time trigger to warning actions. This doesn't actually add any actions. It just adds a point in time where we need to be triggering off an action. So we click add time trigger. And we're going to have this kick off 2 hours before resolution time. So we're going to go 2 hours. And you can do this in multiples of minutes, hours, and days. Okay. And what this means is then we can email or set a task or update another field or send an outbound message. This is using old workflow functionality, probably because we haven't got to this yet in the Lightning switchover. I would expect this to change at some point over the next couple of years. But this is how it works right now. So please make sure that you're comfortable with how this works now. We are going to create a new email alert. So 2 hours before the violation, we're going to click new email alert, and this is going to email the agent to say this is your 2-hour warning on a case because the milestone is about to expire. So we click new email alert. The description is 2-hour warning before milestone expires, and we've got to create a new email template, which may already be there. So if we click email template, we have support templates in here. I don't think we have a milestone one though. So let me close that. Now what we need to do here as well, support case response template, it says. Okay, so it just says use any old template. So this one's called case response, but in real life you would create your own email template that says, hello Gemma, you're 2 hours away from missing your before your milestone expires, prompting some action from Gemma to close the case, or at least say why she can't. So in the new email alert window, we can then define who are the types of people that will receive this email alert. Remember when we did workflow and we talked about this? So in the recipient type, we can click there's many different options. And the one that we need is owner, because we're just going to notify the case owner, and click add. Now, if the owner is a queue, then it will be everybody that's in the queue will be notified. So it kind of puts the onus on the entire team to go and pick up the case. Okay, we leave everything else as it is and click save. And now your case owners for high priority cases, remember, she'll get a warning email 2 hours before the 16-hour limit is reached. So the next thing we have to do is go back and activate this process. So we click on our entitlement process and we click edit and we click active and we save it. So just to summarize, you have now created your first entitlement process, which is for standard support. It's based on the criteria of the case being opened. So created date is the same as date time opened. The default business hours are used, which is 24 hours a day. And you've also created 2 milestones and associated them with this process. Your milestone is around resolution time, and then your case, your entitlement milestones are that if you have a high priority case, it must be completed within 960 minutes. And if it's medium and low, you must complete the case within 1920 minutes. And it uses the process, it checks on whether the case is actually closed or not. And this is great, but at the moment it's still just kind of sitting there alone by itself and not really doing much. So now that we've got it ready, we've got to actually apply it to any customer entitlements that we want. So if you've got any cases that are created from the entitlement, you have to follow the steps in that entitlement process. It seems a little backwards sometimes. I mean, from a process perspective, actually, I struggle with that from a user experience, because an agent wouldn't necessarily create a case from an entitlement unless that entitlement was the center of the process. Typically, the customer is the center of a customer service process, so these things will tend to be created from an account. And if that's true, there are other things that you have to do in the background to make sure that the entitlement process is stamped onto the case so that the milestones come through, etc. And you can do that quite easily with Process Builder. It's just other things you have to think about. So as people start describing these things, you then are balancing their requirements against how you could possibly set up the entitlement process, but then also how can you make sure that entitlement process gets automatically applied depending on where people are creating cases from. Make sense? So I know it's a lot to think about, but if a customer starts talking at me about stuff like that, that is all the stuff my brain is thinking about while I'm listening. You know, which I could be better at doing. You know, it's a trap we all fall into, is to solution while we're listening. So now that we've activated it, we've got to apply it to an actual entitlement. So I think this time we're going to be back into the front stage area, and we're going to go into our app launcher, and I'm going to search for the entitlement that I created earlier. So we go to entitlements. And do I go for standard phone support? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to click standard phone support, and you'll find there's a box here for entitlement process. So if we just edit that, there's our standard support process. And we click save. Oh my God, I get to do some code now. Well, hey, fantastic. It's all written for us, don't worry. Okay. Now, this is where it can be a little bit old-fashioned in some ways, because it says without using an apex trigger, entitlements aren't automatically added to new cases. That is true, but it's not necessarily something you have to do with an apex trigger anymore. You can do this with Flow. You know, you can set there's a field on the case called entitlement, and let me just try and find it. Yeah, there you go. So you have entitlement name there, and once you've got an entitlement against an account, you can actually build your own logic in there to say, when a case is created, go and look for the right entitlement and stamp it onto the case, and then it will bring over all the milestones and everything else. But for this trailhead badge, we are going to have a little bit of fun with code. So we're going to create an apex trigger. An apex trigger is a piece of code that's written within Salesforce, and it enables you to insert, create, edit, or delete data in Salesforce programmatically. You might use a trigger to perform those functions, but you might then have triggers being called by an Apex class. And an Apex class would be a big, long piece of programming language, which will actually invoke your triggers and say, okay, if this happens, then run this trigger. If this happens, then run that trigger. If the other happens, if neither of them happen, then run all these triggers, and so on. And then in an Apex class, you can also do call outs to other systems, and you can then trigger things off the back of those call outs and all of that. So very high level, the trigger is the bit that makes the changes to the database. So there's something we've got to do here. There is a Apex trigger that we've got to create, and luckily it's all written for us. We don't have to change it, and you don't have to know anything about coding to do this bit. But what it is generally doing is it's actually taking contact IDs. It's actually going to set the entitlement ID onto the account. Sorry, it's going to create an entitlement for an account, and it's going to paste that. It's going to update the entitlement name field on the case. Okay, so copy. I'm going to put this in the chat as well if you want it. Hooray. No. I don't think that's copied and pasted very well. Okay, go to the page and copy it from the snippet. That's going to be a lot easier. Okay, So whenever Salesforce gives you code, you can generally copy it all onto your clipboard straight away. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to go to our object manager, find the case object, and then create a new trigger. Let me just check the time. This is just so much fun. Hooray. So we go to object manager, click case, and we go further down the left, you've got a thing called triggers. And we can create a new trigger straight away. Now, you can't create these in a production environment like this. You have to do it in a sandbox and then deploy it up using a change set or other tools. But in a trailhead playground, you're generally okay. So click new, and it will come up with a code window here. So you just want to delete out what you've got there, and you just want to paste the trigger code from Trailhead directly into here. Okay. Yeah. Click save. Once you've done that, it assigns the entitlement based on select entitlement contact asset from entitlement contact. So that's a join there, where contact ID is in this list and entitlement end date is greater than today. So it's looking for an entitlement record that is currently active. So the date is, so that today is, so that it's currently active based on the dates. Then you've got some things being caught there. So if it doesn't find anything, then it tells you what to do with it. This is where people, like all the developers watching, are just going to throw me to pieces, throw me to the wolves. Then it creates a list. So it's then going to go and get the start date and the end date from, and the account and the asset ID from an entitlement. And it's going to get, is basically going to create a new entitlement record against the correct asset and account. Yeah, by asset. Okay. Bearing in mind, I don't have a development background, so, you know, complete disclaimer here, I'm probably completely wrong. I can generally get the basics of what's happening in there, but the minute someone asks me to go into detail, I'm just like, oh my God. Anyway, I'm very much more confident when it comes to point and click. So, and after all that, it's not even going to check our org. Can you believe it? We're going to have a quiz instead. So, okay, having muddled my way through that one. Quiz question number 1. What is a milestone? A planned company event. B, a required step in a company support process. C, a warning that's sent out if a customer SLA is violated. And D, a way of measuring how far away a service appointment is. Okay. What does a case trigger automatically do? Question number 2. A, assigns cases to support agents. B, resolves cases successfully. C, escalates cases to the top tier of support. Or D, adds the correct entitlement to a new case. Well, I think this is going to be that and that. Boing! 100 points. Cool. Okie dokie. So the next thing to do is to actually practice using entitlements. And the moment has come. There is a frantic representative from Dreamhouse Realty who calls the support line and says that one of its new solar panels is malfunctioning. Ada Balewa gets on the line to take the case. First, she checks that Dreamhouse Realty has an active phone support entitlement. So let's go and do that. Dreamhouse Realty. La 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 la. Okay. And on the related bit, yes, they've got phone support, so that's good. Then what she does, after she's determined that she can provide support to the customer, she creates a high priority case. So we're going to go to the account record to do this. Yes, the account, Gemma. And we're going to create a new case. That's why we did the trigger, because we don't need to do it from an entitlement. We need to do it from the customer. That's right. So this is a new case. It is high priority, and the case origin is the phone. For the subject, we're going to enter the name. Notice how that entitlement name is blank, completely blank at the moment. We're then going to go to our subject and say malfunctioning solar panel. And in the description, we just say new solar panel isn't working as expected. Grammarly doesn't like that very much. Assign Dreamhouse Realty as the account if it doesn't appear automatically, which it has, we're good. And we click save. Now, what I'm expecting to happen, because we've got a trigger, is that this entitlement name gets populated with the standard phone support entitlement. So let's have a look. Save. And there we go. There's our standard phone support entitlement. So because it's automatically added to the case, the resolution time milestone starts counting down automatically. Now let's just see if we've got, I don't think we've added that to this, but let's have a look at related. No. Okay. So the next thing we have to do is that we have to add the milestone tracker so that we can see how we're getting on with the support process for this case. So it helps our agents, because they can see very visually exactly what's going on with that case. So we've got to go, we're still front stage, and we're going to go, and we've got our malfunctioning solar panel case. We then need to select our edit. We need to add the component to our Lightning page. So we're going to click Setup. We're going to click Edit Page. And we're going to basically bring in our Milestones Lightning component, which is on the left-hand side somewhere. Yeah, there it is. It's called Milestones. It says drop it under Case Details. So this, I assume that means there. Personally, I would probably have it at the top, up here. Let me just double check. Okay, no, it's not meant to be there, is it? Details. Oh, it thinks we've got a different layout. That's all right. I'm going to put it up here, actually. So you can see it's going to tell me that I've got, it's actually counting down how much time is left until I've completed that milestone. You can also show whether you want to hide the mark completed link or not. And you can programmatically and with Process Builder and Flow mark a milestone as being completed when, for example, if you've responded to an email. I set that up for a company a few years ago, so that if they emailed somebody emailed the customer, it would actually automatically close that first milestone, which was a response milestone. And we managed to do that completely automatically. Okay, so what happens next? Let's have a look and see what we've got. So we can see we've got 15 hours, 57 minutes, 12 seconds left until we hit our milestone. And we can apply that to any customer entitlement in order to enforce case resolution times. Okay, so that's something that we can do anytime. She can use, so notice how we just used the single milestone and we used it twice in a process because we have different support levels. You're able to reuse various milestones throughout the life of your process. There are limits to the changes that you can make to an entitlement process. So once it's active, if you can basically use a thing called Entitlement Versioning, and that's on the Entitlement Settings page. Remember when we set up the Entitlement Settings? It means that you can migrate existing milestones and cases from an old version of a entitlement process to a new one. And that's really important if you are wanting to get like-for-like reporting. Customer service is a lot about metrics. And if you change your entitlement process, and then you are reporting, you know, last year's case. If you want to see improvement or do comparisons between cases closed maybe before the process change versus cases that were closed after the process change, if you want to do like for like, you'll need to use entitlement versioning to do that. Okay, so we have another quiz for this particular part. So question number 1, how does the milestone tracker show, what does it show agents? A, the time remaining until an active milestone reaches its target date. B, the time passed since an overdue milestone's target date. C, a list picker for available milestones. D is A and B. And E is B and C. I think it's A and B. I don't know, we'll try it. I think it could be A as well. Number 2, how can an admin create and maintain multiple versions of an entitlement process? Well, A, you can edit the process whenever you want. B, create a new process every time there's a change. C, enable entitlement versioning, or D, restart entitlement management from scratch. Jeremy says, is the milestone appearing for everyone? Has everybody got the milestone? Can you all see it? Okay. So I think I'm going to try these two. Yeah! Very good. Okay, well, we have 20 minutes left. Let's see if we can get through the rest of this badge. We're going to have a look at work orders. This work orders is actually to do with another feature and product on Salesforce, which is called Field Service Lightning. And this is used when there is physical work that needs to be done on a customer's product, basically. So, for example, if you have a thermostat and it is supported by customer support department, and they need to send out somebody out to do emergency repairs, you could use Field Service Lightning in order to do that, to send an engineer out. So Field Service Lightning manages that. You can get a certification in Field Service Lightning. I haven't got it yet. It's on my list of things to do, and you know, happy if anybody wants to study together for that. I'm more than happy to facilitate that for everybody and myself, because I need to learn. Okay, so I've already explained the first bit. So Dreamhouse Realty is entitled to emergency repairs within 48 hours of a solar panel mishap. So I guess we're going to have to create another entitlement. Ursa Major also uses work types. These are templates that save time and make it easier to standardize field service work. So for now, it just uses 2 work types: scheduled maintenance and emergency repairs. When Ursa Major creates a work order using a work type, it automatically fills in some key information, such as the estimated duration of the work, the required skills for the service crew, and the required products to complete the work. This automation saves Ursa Major's team time they can spend helping customers and squeezing in a few coffee breaks. So there are a few things to keep in mind. Entitlement processes only run on records that match their type, so you can't use the same entitlement process for cases and for work orders. Ursa Major uses entitlement processes, so it needs to manage its customers' cases and work orders on different entitlements. The object milestones related list on work orders doesn't have the same fields that it does on cases. Okay, fine. We got to go and enable field service. Should we have some fun with this? Why not? So we're going to go into setup, back to backstage, and I'm doing this with you completely from new. So I'm learning with you. We got to find some settings called field service settings. And we got to click Field Service Lightning. We've got to toggle it on. Woohoo! Field Service Lightning is on. The next thing we got to do when it's finished switching itself on, yay, success. Okay. The next thing we got to do is we have to go and edit an object called work order. And we need to change the page layout. So we're going to go to Object Manager. And we're going to find work order. I'm going to quick find for this because I can't bother to scroll down. Work order, the page layouts. and we're going to go to the work order layout. There's a field that we need to put on here, which is called duration. So we're going to pull this down. Notice how there's an entitlement on the work order as well, and an asset. Similar sort of thing. We also need to drag, so that goes in the information section, and then there's two other fields that we need to add. We need to add work type and put that in the description section. And there is also, what else do we need? Milestone status. So those two fields go in the description section. And quick save just in case. Yeah, okay. So now Maria is on her way to becoming a work order expert. The next thing we have to do some record types. And the record types are going to be on, just a sec, create a work type. Oh, okay, they're not record types. Okay, it's a different thing. So we're going back to front stage. One of the things we need to create work types, and they are basically held in what's called a custom object. Sorry, we talked about custom objects. And it's called work type. So we're just going to come into here and we're going to add in a couple of new ones. So the new one is called emergency repairs, and this is effectively a way of saying what type of work is it, how long does it take typically, so that we can plan, because the whole point of field service lightning is around scheduling jobs and finding the right workers to perform the right jobs. It's around sending, and it's an extension of support in the sense that it's just sending an engineer out. So in order to do this, you have to have a benchmark of different jobs that the engineers create, that the engineers complete, and how an estimated time. So this one's called emergency repairs. And the estimated duration is in hours, and it's 4 hours. So we're going to click that. The next thing we've got to do is we have to create a new entitlement for work orders specifically, rather than for cases. So we're going to go back into our app launcher, and we're going to go back to our old friend, the Entitlements tab. And there's our standard phone support and our phone support entitlements that we made earlier in the module. So we click new, and we're going to create a new entitlement for Dream House Realty, which is emergency repairs. And the type is none. We just leave that blank. Dream House Realty is our account. Start date is today. And the end date is today next year. Okie doke. It says to leave everything else blank, because the next thing that we're going to go and do is we're going to go backstage again, and we're going to create an entitlement process to go with this entitlement of emergency repairs. So back into backstage and home, and I'm going to use the quick find box again to find an entitlement process. Just check for questions. You all right there? Cool. So our new entitlement process is going to be called work order. So you see, it talked about, because we enabled field service lightning. Do you remember when we looked at this earlier? You could only select cases. Now, because we've got FSL enabled, we can actually we can specify that this entitlement process goes towards work orders. Work orders are what you use to send engineers out, or field service people. This one is going to be called work emergency repairs, of course. An emergency. Really? Did you guys just see that? I didn't tell it to do that. Anyway. Emergency repairs. Thank you. Thank you, Chrome. I like you. The description is perform emergency repairs for customers. So this will effectively set milestones for when people have to arrive. So like if they're given a work order, maybe they have to arrive within an hour of being given it to them or whatever. You know, and you would use these entitlement processes to manage that, to manage those targets. So we select active. If you were going to add milestones to this process, you wouldn't activate it yet. But if you'd like to, you can also select a business hours. So we'll just leave that as the default. And click save. Then what we have to do is we have to apply the entitlement process to our entitlements. So back into front stage, back into our emergency repairs entitlement. We're just going to edit it, and we're going to put our we're going to assign our emergency repairs to the process on the entitlement. So what we've just done is we've linked the process to an actual entitlement that belongs to a customer to make sure that we're following that process correctly for work orders. Okay, so the final piece to this, remember earlier we created an apex trigger that would apply an entitlement that belongs to an account. We would apply that entitlement name to a case record. Well, what we got to do now is actually apply it to a work order instead. So we have to, we're remaining in front stage, and we're finding all of our work orders, which is another tab. And we're going to create a brand new one. So the account, so we created a new one. It's high priority. The asset is the Dreamhouse Realty solar panel that we created earlier. The account is Dreamhouse Realty. You can automate all this, and you can even have someone follow flow in order to set this up. And in your flow, you can set all the entitlements for you without having to go through this process. But going through this process helps you to understand what's needed before you can automate it. Your entitlement is the emergency repairs that belongs to Dreamhouse Realty. The subject, whoops, hold on. The subject is damaged solar panels. And the description is repair 2 solar panels damaged during hailstorm. And click save. Now, what surprises me is I would expect to see that work type filled in, but we might be getting to that shortly. So now that Ada has created a work order to repair those damaged solar panels, how does that work get done? Well, Major creates a service appointment from that work order. It uses the power of the Field Service Lightning Dispatcher's console to schedule the service appointment, and voila, a handy service crew is dispatched to work on the repair within 48 hours. Okay, we got another quiz, guys and girls. We have got question number 1, what are work orders used for? A, assigning work to employees. B, tracking the work needed on customers' products. C, ordering spare parts to complete repairs. Or D, buying lunch for company meetings and events. I think it is going to be B. Question number 2, when a work order is created from a work type, what happens automatically? A, the work order is filled in with important information. B, emergency maintenance is scheduled. C, a worker is assigned to complete the job. Or D, the customer is notified that the work order is logged. So when it's created from a work type, what happens automatically? I don't know. I'm going to have a look. Work type. See, we haven't filled. Okay, so I missed that. We have to go and add our emergency repairs to our work order, because under work types. Remember I said earlier I would expect that to happen. Well, it was supposed to happen. I just didn't see the instructions. So let's go back and find our damaged solar panels work order. And I'm going to put under work type, I'm going to put emergency repairs. Let's see. Okay, that's done. So what is going to happen? When it's created from a work type, what happens automatically? I guess emergency maintenance is scheduled. Let's check. No, that's wrong. So I guess, what does everyone think? A, work order filled in. Yeah, it is A. So we get a work order filled in. Well, congratulations. We've all got a new badge. I'm well happy. Yeah, like a broken clock. Nice. Very nice indeed. Okay, everybody. So just to recap, today we have been looking at entitlement management for cases. We've set up an entitlement process. We've set up milestones. I'm right twice a day. And we've looked at case timelines and milestones. We've even had a look at field service lightning. Isn't that great? So congratulations, everybody. So this week we have tackled, in fact, this week and last week, we've looked at case management, we've looked at Omni-Channel, we've looked at assignment rules, escalation rules, auto-response rules, entitlements. I think next week we start looking at knowledge and start going through some of those things. And I will set you a challenge that is aligned for homework. I will set you a challenge that is aligned with setting up cases and entitlements, so that you can have a go on your own. I wish you the very best of luck and enjoyment for your homework. And if you have any questions, please do give me a shout. Thank you very much for coming to the training tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed it and learnt a lot. Thank you.